Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you go and use the promo code BOXES when you sign up for draft.com, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
So, Michael, do you think we enhanced draft.com's profile?
I think so.
Because I've been hearing them on some pretty big name podcasts now.
Oh.
And I think we might have been behind this, right? Like, we made them all that money. And now they're just like, all right.
I'm gonna say they weren't. I didn't hear them in all the other podcasts until I heard them on our podcast. So if you're hearing them on other podcasts, don't use that promo code. Use the promo code BOXES, you fools.
I think we big time enhanced their profile, though.
Yeah, we're the OGs, and baseball's coming up. So if you're good at fantasy baseball, which Tyler, I don't know if you're good at fantasy baseball. I don't know how good you are, but you seem to be into it.
Oh, I love baseball.
Oh my gosh. It's too long, too many games.
I think that's what I like about it.
Oh my gosh. I can't even watch regular baseball, let alone do fantasy baseball.
Oh, man, I'm a big Braves fan, so I watch pretty much every game.
That's fair. I celebrated with people as the Cubs won just because of the history, but
aren't you a White Sox fan?
No, I'm even worse. I'm a Cardinals fan.
How are you a Cardinals fan living in Chicago? Is that like blasphemy?
I'm from downstate. The state's split. It's Cardinals and Cubs, and then like every 10th person is a White Sox fan. And the South Side. That's it. That's the only Sox fans.
Poor Sox. Hey, they might be good in a couple years. They got a lot of good prospects, but no one wants to hear about that.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear. We are not starting a fantasy baseball podcast, though I bet you there's a market for that, but we are not starting it. But Tyler, you can feel free to do that with someone who cares about baseball. I, for one, only like baseball when it is over, because that usually means the NBA is starting and starting to get good. Speaking of fantasy basketball and the NBA, it is playoff time in the Listener League, Tyler. We both made the playoffs. Respect to us because we're good. But also respect to LeBron's hairline, who got second place in the regular season, who's about to get smoked this week by me. And the Sloan Ranger snuck into fourth place over Trust the Prospects. Some questionable ending to the league. There is some discrepancies on what the Sloan Ranger and Dexter Lim matchup. There was some people who were benched in that first day. So if Dexter Lim would have paid attention, we could have seen Trust the Prospects in fourth place. But respect to both of those guys and all of our listeners in the Listener League and all of our listeners who are still listening this late in the season. It was a pretty good league.
I feel like it was rather competitive. I feel like most of the people in the league actually gave a crap and played even all the way out to the end, even though they were eliminated pretty much from the playoffs. In that last week of the regular season, I didn't really see too many rosters that were like just going untouched. Like people were actually checking them and changing them. And props for that, because that's not always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even make it past Christmas. More people don't make it past the All-Star break. So respect to all of the people in the Listener League, except for maybe Big Cock Bangs. Man, we're going to have to drop you next year. I don't know. You only made like 6 moves this year.
Baines. Dude, you weren't listening to the advice, man. You must have stopped tuning in.
Come on, my guy. You got to do better than that. But everybody else, probably going to be asked back. And we will probably be soliciting with the other listeners who didn't get in on our Listener League this year. We'll probably be starting up another Listener League over the summer. So just be prepared for that. But it's kind of the end of the season. We'll let you know who wins this league. I'm sure you're all can't wait to hear. But there is still a few weeks left, about 3 weeks left in the fantasy season.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know. Maybe 3.5.
There's a little bit more than 3, yeah, just because they don't end it on a Sunday for whatever by gum reason that is.
And then the playoffs, the real NBA playoffs start, and that's going to be pretty exciting. But there is still fancy news out there for all you people who play in the head-to-head leagues that go to the end of the season. Respect to you. I know there is a certain people in the fantasy basketball world who don't believe that you should use the entire season. I get it. I disagree. It doesn't matter. Everybody's in the same boat in the league. There's random injuries all the time. Like who cares when you end your league? You're all ending the league at the same time.
Well, and if the goal of your head, like if you want to see who's the best throughout the whole season, play a roto league. If you want to have some random variance in the playoffs, that's why you play head to head. And a head to head league that goes to the end just rewards the people who are paying attention, because you're going to know that Memphis is pulling their shenanigans and tomfoolery, and this team is resting their players and that team's resting their players, and everyone on Boston and Golden State is hurt, and there's players to pick up, and you pick those players up, and that's how you win. So, yeah. I mean, it's the same. And
I think you're onto something. Like, okay, a handful of people picked up Trey Burke. Trey Burke's been having a pretty good few 2 to 3 weeks. He just had a crazy night tonight, scoring like 40-some points. Trey Burke could technically win you this week simply by being outrageously good. Does that mean you're the best fantasy player, or you just happen to be the guy who picked up Trey Burke? Right, and that's why I'm a roto player.
Well, and here's the other reality of the situation. Like, you could be the best fantasy player in the world. Like, you're not going to win every league you play. You're just not, because sometimes you're going to pick 10th, and the best player on the board is Kawhi Leonard, and then Kawhi Leonard plays 7 games this season, and you lose. Like, that's life.
There's definitely luck involved.
So I mean, like, it is a skill game. Like, it definitely is. But at the same time, like, there are some aspects you just can't stop. In one of my leagues, I was one of the top teams all season, right? I made it to the finals, and, like, I had Devin Booker, I had Nick Batum, like, and this was like a 30-team league. So I had Marcus Morris, like, literally half my lineup was out. Like, I killed in the finals. Like, I don't really think I was that much worse of a team, but at the same time, like, when you're missing half your lineup, you have no chance to win.
Yeah, it's the luck of the draw at that point. I don't think if you are the best, no matter when your playoffs start, if you're the best player, you're ranked number 1, and you're ranked number 1 by a lot, all it takes is one bad week or 2 weeks, and you're knocked out of the playoffs. And it's like, well, what was all that for? And if that's what you're into, if you want it to feel a little bit more like fantasy football, go right ahead.
Well, and here's another way I like to play it. Like, if you're actually playing for more than just pride, right? If you're playing for some whatever, gummy bears, whatever it is you play for.
Is that code word for drugs, Tyler?
I don't think so. I don't know. I've never been big in the drug game. Like, you'd have to tell me about that.
I don't know anything about drugs.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think that you give part of the prize to the person who wins the regular season, right? Like, whatever the buy-in is, or however you want to play it. Like, I think some of it should go to the person who wins the regular season, and then distribute the rest of it to the people who do well in the playoffs. Like, that's just an easy way to split it up.
I'm with you. I like rewarding the top couple players. And that's a pretty good thing. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but payouts in head-to-head and roto leagues. Yeah, I like to reward the first couple players in the regular season. Obviously, whoever wins the playoffs. I also like to reward the consolation bracket. Whoever wins that, it gives people something to play for instead of half of your league disappearing.
Well, and here's the reality of this: it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So exclude people from having fun before the season's over. Like, I don't super get that.
No.
Like, okay, you lost, you're out. No, nothing for you to play for. Like, no, that's bullcrap, man. There should be some sort of bracket where you can still play and still have fun, because it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I get wanting to also miss the last, 8 to 10 days of the season, but like, there's still meaningful games being played right now. There's still teams losing meaningful games, like the Timberwolves lost tonight. There's plenty. I mean, Anthony Davis isn't sitting out. LeBron James isn't sitting out. Like I'm not. I'm just not sure what you're trying to protect by starting your playoffs like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, and I mean, do you want to play? I guess is like the whole reality of it to me. Like, if you want to just end it last week or the week before or the week before that, like, did you really want to play at all? Like, you played for like
Some people's
20
seasons
weeks.
are done right now.
And just like you said, I mean, like every game matters to Miami and Milwaukee and Detroit and Charlotte. And I mean, a ton of teams in the Western Conference: Denver, Los Angeles, Minnesota, Utah, San Antonio, New Orleans, Oklahoma City. Like all these teams could miss the playoffs. Like I don't understand ending it before it's over. Really, I just don't like.
I don't either. I'm with you. It's also why I play Roto Leagues, and we are going to talk about Roto Leagues here later in the show. But first, I think we want to, call out some of the goings on around the league. Nick Batum is back. He only played.
Just about 6 days too late, my friend.
I know. It's too bad.
I feel like Nick Batum is a perpetually underrated fantasy player.
He always is, and he was having a really, really nice stretch through February. It seemed like he was kind of had a struggle to start the year, but he really was very consistent over the last month or so until he got injured. Would you pick up Nick Batum for the rest of the year if you're one of those leagues?
I don't know. It's got to be the right kind of roster, I guess, especially in head-to-head leagues. Like if you're punting the categories Nick Batum helps you in, like he's not going to be very good for you. And he's kind of a special type of player. But yeah, I mean, I think Nick Batum's a top 50 player, so of course. I mean, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and a steal. They're hard to come by. He shoots a poor free throw percentage. But other than that, I mean, he's pretty good in every other category. Like he's just a great across the board contributor and a guy I really like to own.
Yeah, perpetually underrated. He's too good not to own if he's available. Someone dropped him, even if it is just for his last few games. Isaiah Thomas out again with a sore hip. A little suspicious about him, not just this season but his future.
Yeah, this one sounds, and we're in the early stage of this one, but he's going to New York to see a specialist. And it's the same hip that he had the surgery on and he missed the beginning part of this season with. And man, just that worries me a lot. I mean, he's going to be a free agent and there's no real reason for him to play anymore this season, right? Like if you're going to be a free agent and your hip's hurting, like why get back out there on the court?
Yeah, why try to win some games for the Lakers
who are out, right? They're eliminated. I mean, there's no chance. So
yeah, get healthy.
And he'll be an interesting one for us to talk about next year, right? Like he had the amazing season last year, and then this year he had the hip, and then he came back and he was nowhere near as good, and then he went to the Lakers and he was kind of hot there for a hot minute. Now the hip's back, and so where he goes in drafts could be very interesting, but obviously we're a long way away from that because we got to know where he's going to play first.
Yeah, we're not really sure if who's going to pick him up. I still think he could be a very decent sixth man or eighth man even. Bring him in.
That's maybe the most interesting part is he keeps saying that he's a starter and he's only going to sign to be a starter.
Yeah, he's not.
And he's only going to sign for big money. So like, could he like go to China?
I don't know. Starberry made a whole career out of it.
You know what I mean? Because like some of those teams will give him crazy big money. And if he's a man of his word, right? Like if he sticks to his guns and says, I'm only playing for this crazy amount and I'm only playing if I can be a starter. And I just don't see anyone doing that. Like, okay, he had that great season in Boston, but I mean, look at the numbers for yourself. You can clearly see that that's the outlier, man. Like he's never done anything like that remotely, really. And
No,
so
I think he was building up to that. It's not like he was. It's not like he looked like this 2 years ago, and then suddenly he was amazing. Like he was getting better consistently every year, and then just fell into this. I mean, ungodly hot streak. I don't think it was a hot streak. I think he was that good. I think without this hip injury, he would have had not the same season. I think that was just the highest mark anyone could get. But I think he would still been pretty good this year.
well, I'm not going to rag on him because he's a really fun player to watch. But that 46% that he shot from the field was just a little bit unsustainable. Like he had one other season like that when he played for the Kings. He shot 45, but even that just seemed a little bit lucky. And so I think he just got really hot, and you know what I mean? Like the dice came up snake eyes just enough times for him to shoot a really high percentage, but I think he's more of a 43, 44% shooter like he was for his career. And so, you know what I mean? Like the 22 a game was probably more like what it should have been the first year in Boston. I just don't know that he gets back to those heights. And I don't know that a team like look around the NBA, man. Not that many teams are looking for a starting point guard.
No, well, not that many teams are looking for starting point guard. Not that many teams are looking for a 5'9"
No
shooter
defense,
off the bench that can't play defense.
right? And he's
Who's
gonna
not
be
just can't play defense, is a liability.
and he turns 30 in the middle of next season. I mean, next February he turns 30,
It's a shame. Like
and he's got a bad hip.
Timothy Mozgov is going to make more money than Isaiah Thomas does in his career.
Hey, sometimes it's all about being a free agent at the right time. But here's the other thing too, and like a contender team would be the only one who would give him money, right? Like none of these rebuilding teams are going to give a 30-year-old point guard money, and like not many contending teams need a point guard
or have money.
So that one will be one of the maybe the most interesting stories to watch in the offseason.
Yeah, that's kind of messed up that Isaiah Thomas might. After seeing how good watching Isaiah Thomas last year, that next year Isaiah Thomas might not even be in the league.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
I mean, I think he will, but like, there's a chance, a good chance,
well, and
a better chance.
I think that there's a chance too that he either plays at $5 million. I mean, like he makes $6 or $7 or $8 million a year, or if he really sticks to his guns and says he's a $15 or $20 million a year player, that he goes to China or somewhere that he can get the money, goes to Europe.
Yes, someone who's going to play him. I wonder what he could average. I bet you even with his hip, he could average like 40 in China.
Well, didn't Marbury 1 year or like average like 35, and he was like past his prime?
Oh yeah, Starbury is amazing. That whole like go look at everybody go look into that Starbury and China stuff. Like he's great.
He finally retired though this year.
Yeah, respect to Stephon Marbury
at 41 years old, and he was still killing it. Mind you.
Wonder what Jordan could have done at 41 in China. Probably 80 points a fucking game.
Well, no one plays defense in that league. Like, oh man, what is the guy? The Jimmer Fredette. You realize he went over there and averaged like 25 points a game, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and like they all loved him over there because he's like, I mean, he always was a good shooter, like,
yeah.
But he would like step way behind the line and shoot it and being it. And yeah, it was.
Imagine being wide open all the time and shooting.
Yep.
Against guys who are slower than the NBA. I think that's fair to say.
Well, and they have a much shorter league, so like guys like Jimmer Fredette are not that undersized, and that matters.
Yeah, that helps. I just want to remind everybody out there that Michael Jordan averaged 20 points as a 39-year-old in the NBA. So everyone shut up your mouths about anyone else being better than Michael Jordan. Just put it out there.
How many could Jordan average, like, if he stepped on the court this afternoon and played an NBA game? Like, if he played 50 games this season for the Wizards.
This season?
I don't know. Name a team. Doesn't matter.
I bet you coming off the bench, playing limited minutes, playing like every third game, at least 14.
That's insane. That's insanity.
I think it's true. How old is he? Like 60? He's like 50 something. If he was 40 in 04, man, he's like 54.
I remember the 50th birthday a few
All
years
right,
back.
maybe. All right, let me take that back. I don't know if he could average 14.
He turned 55 on February 17th.
Wow. I'm not sure he could average 14 then. Maybe like 8 or 10.
I don't know, man. There's the story that like guys will come to Charlotte like rookies and they'll play him one-on-one and he'll still school them.
But he's such a one-on-one player. Like he's the epitome of the one-on-one player. He like made all these guys like Tracy McGrady who should not have been like Tracy McGrady could have been like this absolutely insane Kevin Durant-esque Draymond player, and Tracy McGrady, just like everybody else in that era, thought they were Michael Jordan, which I get it. Every kid growing up watching Michael Jordan thought he was Michael Jordan for at least an afternoon, let alone if you were good enough to make it to the NBA. So Mike, they all built their game around him.
Are you reverting back to your childhood right now?
Nobody, I'm just saying, nobody on the playground was trying to be Horace Grant.
Dude, I was trying to be Scottie Pippen.
That's fair. Scottie Pippen was cool. Rodman was cool. Luke Longley was not cool.
Who was the white point guard? That's the guy I was trying to be.
Kerr?
Was it Kerr?
Steve Kerr?
No, I feel like they had a way worse guy.
Coach?
No, the way worse guy when Michael Jordan played.
B.J. Armstrong is not white, but he was on the team.
I had another point guard, though, didn't they? I'll look it up.
Potapinko? That he was not a point guard. We could go on and on about 90s basketball players, but we probably should not. Another player I want to mention, Alex Len, has been averaging 25, almost 26 minutes in the last 3 games. I'm a strong buy on Alex Len for the rest of the season. I don't see anyone. I don't see Tyson Chandler suddenly coming back and playing 25 minutes and putting Alex Len on the bench.
Does John Paxton? That was the guy I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, John Paxton, the current I don't know which is better, to be Bert or Bernie. I think he's the Ernie. No, he's the Bert.
He's the Bernie. Just say he's the Bernie.
He's the more competent one of Garpax. Apparently, Gar Forman.
Well, that's Bert, dude. Bert's definitely the more competent one.
Yeah, he's the Bert. Yeah. Garpax is just asleep and eating sausages. Like, he's worthless.
He never leaves his bed.
Absolutely worthless and needs to go.
All right, what were you asking me about now? Because
Alex Len.
I was racking my brain. Yeah, I mean, pick him up, own him. I don't know that it'll last, right? Because Phoenix is just doing weird crap, and Alan Williams is coming back for their next game. So I think Alan Williams will eat into some of those minutes at the 5. The bigger question to me really is Alex Len on the team next year? And I think the answer to that question is probably no.
I think it's absolutely no. No,
right, because he's an unrestricted free agent. He signed that 1-year, $4 million deal as a restricted free agent or whatever. So, I mean, he could go anywhere, and I don't think he gets a ton of money, but I think someone signs him.
Yeah, I think, unlike somehow Isaiah Thomas, Alex Len will play in the league next year. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, some team, and it'll probably be a team that's kind of on the lower end of the standings this year, will take an upside shot on him. Because we've seen some really good flashes from Alex Len, but we haven't really seen him put it all together.
Yeah, like why wouldn't Memphis pay him, I don't know, like $4 million to hang out with Marc Gasol all day and try to learn some crap up from Marc Gasol?
Well, and it's important to remember he's still only 24 years old too, right? Like, he turns 25 in June. He's still a pretty young guy.
Yeah. Speaking of like guys who have amazing fantasy potential, but have not really provided the playing time in order to meet that fantasy potential. Nerlens Noel
Oh,
has
Nerlens.
has played like every other game, and played in the mid 20 minutes per game since the beginning of this month.
And here's the thing I'll say about Nerlens, man. Like, Nerlens has a great fantasy friendly game, and we've talked about this. Oh man, so we've talked about this since we've been on the Daily Fantasy Basketball podcast, man. How many years ago was that?
Way
now?
back on the old podcast.
Right? Like every year Nerlens been in the league, we've been talking about how Nerlens is a great permanent fantasy producer, but just is anyone really going to give him a shot? And I think him being a little bit of a character hurts that, right? Like I'm going to go get a hot dog during the game and just do immature things. That hurts his chances of ever getting a huge role, and I just don't know that it's ever coming.
Well, it certainly hurts his chance of getting a huge role with a respected coach like Carlisle. I bet he would be right at home in Sacramento.
I don't know. I think they're pretty committed to Willie Cauley-Stein.
Yeah, they don't need him.
And so, you know what I mean? Like, you got to find a place where he's actually going to be able to get the minutes. And
think about this after the draft with all these centers and kind of pseudo centers and stretch centers coming out like it's a center heavy draft. Where does Nerlens Noel fit?
And that's what I mean. And some of these teams are going to like black flag him, whatever you want to call it. Like, just say, we don't want you because we know you've been a headache in the past, right? And he had that reputation of being kind of a headache in Philly, and that's why Philly really didn't get much for him when they traded him. Mm-hmm. So I would say that Alex Len has a better percentage chance of being in the league next year than Nerlens Noel. Not that I think they'll both will be. I think Nerlens Noel will catch on somewhere, but I wouldn't say that it's 100% chance.
I think there's a higher percentage chance Alex Len is fantasy relevant next year versus Nerlens Noel.
Well, and Nerlens Noel's another guy who, I mean, he kept complaining about the money. Like, could we see him go somewhere else and try to get more money?
Sure.
Because I don't see him getting a big contract from anybody. I don't see him getting a very
probably not Nerlens.
I don't see him getting a very long-term contract with anybody either, unless it's like a lot of team option-y type things. Because just he's been a bit of a clown. I don't know what else to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just don't do it, man. Just
speaking of former Philadelphia 76ers, where's Jahlil Okafor? Like, I know he's in Brooklyn, but like, where is he in Brooklyn?
Well,
MIA.
He's another one. Like, does he fit in the modern NBA? I think the answer to that question is no. Just doesn't.
Not at all. How many points will Jahlil Okafor average in China next year?
Here's the reality, though. Like, if a team
maybe 50,
like he's a real good scorer, and he'd be ginormous. Like, and they have some tall guys over there, but no one who weighs 260 pounds. I don't think.
Or like who has footwork, you know?
You know what I mean? And so he would be a monster. I just don't really see him catching on anywhere. Is that terrible to say? Like,
no, who's interested in people were barely interested in Greg Monroe, and like Jahlil Okafor is a poor man's Greg Monroe.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, just like, it's a shame because like you look at this big, huge man with that kind of skill, and I understand he can't defend, but it's like, how can this guy not play in the league? Like, it's mind-boggling.
He was drafted in 2015. That's wild. Like the league, I'm gonna go check out when Greg Monroe was drafted. The league has basically left. Greg Monroe was drafted in 2010, but has basically left these types of players behind real quick. Like in the last 3 years, it's just been exponentially leaving these guys behind. You know, just a couple of years ago, Greg Monroe was a big free agent, and then the next year, it was kind of like, ooh, you're kind of obsolete. And then the year after that, he wasn't playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane how fast things have moved here. And I think eventually we'll see the pendulum swing back, but it's not going to be soon enough for it to make a difference for Julie.
I'm not sure we're going to see the pendulum swing back to bigs who can't play defense. I feel like the pendulum is mutating into Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, well, what you need to be is you need to be a big man who's a little less heavy and can get out on the wings, right? Like that's what you need to be now. And but I think we'll see a few like and those guys will be able to play defense, but we'll see some Rudy Goberts if they're out there like come back and make a statement before it's terrible long. Just like big guys who can command the paint and they can do a little bit of switching, but mostly they're just a freaking bull down there on the block.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a long time until you see the old just get it to the big man and let him work inside.
Right.
And if you do, that guy's gonna be able to run around a string and hit a 3 too.
Or he's just gonna be like athletic enough where he can still guard those players, but he's so much bigger than them that he can just jam it down their throat and no one can stop him.
Remember when Roy Hibbert was a thing?
Yeah, man. He got just faded out to the black very fast. I was wondering what Shaquille would do now. Because Shaquille was big and pretty athletic.
He was pretty fast and had really good footwork. Like
I feel like Shaquille would kill some of these teams, though, that want to go small.
He would still destroy him. Like Shaq was just something else, you know, like especially the young Shaq. Like everybody go watch, all you kids out there, go watch the old young Shaq. Shaq would destroy a lot of these teams. Shaq was like Embiid without a shot, but twice the size.
Yes, I mean he was just massive, and like the way he could move for a massive man was just
it's unheard of. It still almost pretty much is.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other guys we need to talk about? Maybe the current 76er, Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, we got a couple point guards here. I think that we're talking about. Markelle Fultz, right, made his second debut, 60
yeah,
after a 68 game absence. I saw that on Twitter today. I'm like, wow,
there's gonna be a lot of hype around this one. 10 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds in 14 minutes. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I watched part of this game. I won't say that I saw every second of Markelle Fultz because that would be untrue. But it looked to me like they were really trying to feature him. That like when he got out there, they were trying to get the ball in his hands. I mean, he took 13 shots in 14 minutes. He only made 5 of them. So the field goal percentage is going to be a problem if you're picking him up for fantasy. And I don't know that he's going to shoot threes.
Ever?
Like, I think he's a Ben Simmons-y type, but he's much smaller than Ben Simmons. So he's not going to be as effective at the rim, I don't think. But he's
nice you could take Simmons out and put Fultz in and have him run the offense, I guess.
Right, yeah, that's I think maybe kind of the plan, especially with them making the playoffs and those coming up, is to kind of have all the point guard minutes with Fultz and Simmons, and I think they're going to play on the court together a little bit. I wouldn't expect a ton of minutes from Markelle Fultz.
No, I certainly don't see him being fantasy relevant, but with those types of stats in 14 minutes, would you take a shot at streaming Fultz?
Yeah, if I needed assists and rebounds, I think he's going to be a decent rebounder for a guard.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get some dimes, but you also got a way where he's hurting you. Like there could be nights where he's 2 for 13. And then he killed your field goal percentage and he got you 4 points. So risk reward play there. And I don't know that the defensive stats are going to be anything to write home about. So it's not the type of player I'd probably go for, unless it's like a super deep league. And if it's a super deep league, like someone's probably going to pick him up and hold him. So I'd probably be hands off. And then he'll be another interesting player to talk about going into drafts next year because I bet you that they have him pegged as a starter and playing 28 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, no. I'm guessing he's not going to start next year, but maybe that's just me.
Oh, I think he'll be the starting too. I don't think they bring JJ Redick back, right? They gave him that 1 year huge contract, and
Yeah.
I think they see the starting backcourt as being Fultz and Simmons, just like they did at the beginning of this year.
Man,
I mean,
I don't know if you could bring in another non-shooter into that lineup, though.
and here's the thing: he didn't play that much this year, but I guess the question will be like, okay, they can start them both. Like, how much run does he get, and
And
what
why
does
would you want to take the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands?
Well, and here was the way that it was laid out, kind of all preseason, right? Was he was going to be like the off guard, he was going to be the 2 guard, but just can't shoot. So it'll be real interesting to see how they play it. Like I'm telling you, they're going to tell you he's the starter,
Yeah, they're
and
definitely going to say it out loud, but
that's what I mean is so going into drafts, like I could see him being very overdrafted because you can tell me he's the starter all you want, but I don't understand how he's gonna be is unless you're gonna trade Ben Simmons, right? Like he needs the ball in his hands. He can't be an off guard. Like he can't shoot. Like how can you have a 2 guard that can't shoot?
no, it's just not needed.
And so
You could barely have a point guard who can't shoot
and
unless
so
he's 6'10".
um I can say this with some confidence right now. I'm gonna be hands off of him next year in
Oh
fantasy
yeah.
drafts. And until he proves me otherwise, right? Like if we come back in next preseason or you know what I mean, even during the summer league, like if he's hitting from Steph Curry range somehow, then I'm gonna be like, okay, well, this is interesting, but I don't think you're gonna see that. I think there's a 1/3 of a percent chance, you know what I mean? Not a 33% chance, a 1/3 of a percent chance that you see that.
0.00333.
Yeah. Like they're just but it'll be interesting, you know, this is a real interesting team for the next few years. Obviously. They're very young and they've got a lot of
It'll be
talent.
fun to see him in the playoffs. That'll be cool.
I'm hoping they win it, man. It's not gonna happen, but I'll be rooting for them.
Well, I thought I was delusional about my teams. You've gotten a little delusional
No, here's what I'll say
about
though,
Philly.
and when I think we talked about this maybe before, like that Eastern Conference race is as open as it's ever been.
That's true.
Like any of the 8 teams that make it could win, and
Could Philly upset Cleveland in the first round? The answer is yes.
that's what I mean. And I like Miami, Milwaukee, Washington, Indiana, Philly, Cleveland, Boston, Toronto. Like if Boston doesn't get healthy, I'm not banking a lot of money on them. Like Toronto always seems to kind of choke it away in the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
the Cavs are
John Wall's still hurt.
that's what I mean. The Cavs are very much LeBron and no defense.
Yeah. Indiana
So
sucks.
that's what that's what I mean. So it's like that whole thing is kind of wide open. Like, could we see Giannis and the Bucks in the
Ooh.
NBA Finals? Like it's
Ooh, that'd be
possible.
nice.
You know what I mean?
I would like to see Giannis in the finals.
And there's a good possibility that it's still Cleveland. Like, don't get me wrong, but I would say more so than any year in the last at least 5 or 10 years that race is pick your horse, man. Like it's completely wide open if you ask me.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting. Speaking of John Wall, allegedly John Wall might be back for the end of the year. Worth picking up in a roto league if he's available.
How long has John Wall missed? Can you give me a rough estimate?
My guess is he's not available in
Like
whatever league you
he's
are
missed like 2 months too, right? Maybe even a little more. Like it's
He
been a
has
while.
been out since the end of January.
So
And
yes,
let me remind everybody, he's shooting about 42%.
yeah, and that's the other thing to say is right. He hasn't been the John Wall we remember.
No.
He's been this very much crappier version of John Wall. So
Yeah. shooting 71% from the line. Like something
and it's
was up.
and it's a knee injury, so it's not like he's been keeping his condition up. So would I pick him up in a roto league? Is that the question?
Yes.
If I can make up ground in assists, I might.
I would if I need to make up ground in assists.
And I'm pretty healthy in field goal percentage, you know what I mean? And I don't need like a ton of other stuff, although he had been being real good in the defensive stats.
Or or it doesn't matter in field goal percentage.
Right. And here's the other thing though. It's gonna be probably in like 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes a night when it first comes back.
Yeah.
So all he's probably really gonna give you that you can bank on is assists, right? Because he's always been a great assist getter per minute.
So, I think it's worth it for that alone if you're trying to catch some people in assists. And
but here's the other thing I'd say: if I'm not trying to catch someone in assists, if he's on the wire, I'd pick him up, but I'd leave him on my bench. Like if you can't make up any ground in assists,
but then look behind you. So this is what I love about Roto, and I wanted to talk about Roto. Now this is a good segue into it. The strategy in Roto, especially down the stretch, especially in the last month and a half, is so league specific, almost category specific, team specific, and we just kind of listed them all there around John Wall. If you can catch, if you're like next to last in field goal, but you could catch 4 people in assists, well, John Wall's a really great pickup. But if like 4 people can catch you in assists, well, John Wall's probably a pretty good pickup, so no one else ends up catching you with John Wall.
Well, yeah, and every point matters, right?
Yeah.
So, like, even if one person could catch you in assists, and here's the other thing to remember, like, John Wall could get 10 assists in a game. So if he plays for the last 5 games and you're 30 assists ahead, like that could be the difference.
It comes quick. Blocks and steals can come real quick. Same with assists. Rebounds too, if you got the right people.
And that's what I mean. And so like the only way I can help you with your Roto League, right? Like you can't just write me on Twitter and say, Roto League, who should I pick up? This person or this person? I was like, well, I don't know, man.
I have 0%. I have no idea what to tell you.
Like, yeah, like you're gonna have to tell me, like, this category is closed, this category is closed. This
I need 20 data points to tell you who to pick up in a Roto League, which is exactly why I enjoyed Roto Leagues.
And the nice thing about Roto Leagues is you're kind of playing a different head-to-head matchup in every category when it gets to this point in the season. In some cases, like, I can make up a point or two here. I can make up a point or two here, right? Like I can make a point or two, and then you got to decide which way you want to go with it. And then you got to decide how much that's going to hurt you in other categories. Like you pick up someone like John Wall. John Wall is always one of the highest turnover players.
That too, yeah.
So you might lose a couple points, even if you make up a couple points in assist. If you have turnovers in your league, you might lose a couple points and be status quo.
If he ends up blowing you away in field goal and turnovers, and you end up dropping 5 points and only gaining like 2 in assists, you blew it.
Right, and so there's a lot of like very complicated math in the Roto League, and I don't want to say that it's complicated, but like you kind of have to envision what the player's going to do and then put it into your team.
Yeah, there are multiple factors that you have to take into account with really any pickup, especially at this time of the year. I want to talk a little Roto strategy, especially at the last part of the year. One of my favorite things to do in a Roto League is right around the trade deadline is obviously when you want to assess your team. You want to look to see exactly what we're kind of talking about here. Where are some of the categories you need to you can gain points in quickly, and what are some of the categories you need to stave off opponents, and what are some of the categories that you're essentially punting because you're last in free throw, or you're next to last in turnover, but someone else has Westbrook, so it doesn't really matter. You're never going to get that. You're never going to drop that extra point. And then unloading, what I like to do is unload guys who don't meet my criteria to teams who can pass people who are above me. So unloading someone like, if I'm first in assists, unloading someone like Ricky Rubio on teams that are that could pass the second place guy or the first place guy or anyone else who's above me. Just giving them Ricky Rubio for basically nothing. People might think that is a little cheap, but I believe that is actually incredibly smart roto strategy.
Well, and here's the other thing too, right? Like we talk about this all the time. Like the market will bear different things, right? So
yeah.
You might make a pretty, what looks like on paper, maybe lopsided trade, but in reality, like if it's helping you in the standings, it's helping you in the standings. So maybe I trade Ricky Rubio for, I don't know, name a big man, right? Because I can make up some points in some big man categories.
Or like TJ Warren, like some random guy at the bottom part of your standard league.
And this is why if you commissioner a Roto League, it's really hard to veto any trade unless you trade Ricky Rubio for, I don't know, name someone on the Bulls who doesn't ever play a minute.
Sean Kilpatrick.
You know what I mean? Like that, okay, that's indefensible, right? Like,
yeah, that's like a, whoa, what's going on here? Also, that guy, I mean, it has to be someone on their team. You know what I mean? Like the worst player on their team is still probably, unless you're in one of those big, giant, deep leagues, right? If you're in a standard league, the worst player on any standard league team is probably good enough to be like, all right, yeah, fine, that's fine. You cannot run a roto league where you vote to veto. You just can't, because everyone will vote no. I mean, everyone votes no anyway. I don't think you should be doing that in any league, but especially roto leagues.
That's just a terrible way to. I mean, like, if you're a commissioner, be a commissioner, right? Like, you got to decide on the trades, and you got to also decide if there's something fishy going on, right? Like,
yeah,
if the Roto League is some keeper league, like then it gets even more difficult, right? Because if you can keep players, like you could tell me you wanted to keep anybody. Like, here's a good example: Luke Kennard. Like, there was a good players this season where he wasn't doing anything. Now lately, he's been kind of bubbling up a little bit and looking pretty decent and looking like an all right keeper, especially if you keep a lot of players next year. But there were points in the season where if Luke Kennard was on your roster and you traded him for Ricky Rubio, it would look terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like, okay, well, and Ricky Rubio is not that old, so maybe he's not the best person. But like, if you wanted to keep Luke Kennard in your Roto League, like I wouldn't say that's the absolute worst keeper in the world, right? Like, there's at least is showing some promise.
Yeah, like there's always going to be tons of those. Like if you're in a keeper league, it's a legit keeper league, and you've had it for a long time. This happens in my keeper league a lot. Suddenly, you'll see someone who has Kevin Durant and Al Horford, just trade those guys away for the best keeper in the league. Hey, is that fair? It is, because that guy says, "Hey, my team sucks. I'm not gonna win this year. I'm playing for next year. I want the best keeper in the league."
Well, and I think we see that in keeper leagues with injured players, right? Like Kawhi Leonard.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Sure. Like, okay, Kawhi Leonard isn't worth anything this year, but next year Kawhi Leonard is probably a top 3 round pick at least. Granted that he's healthy, which we don't know yet. Not yet.
We hope by then.
You know what I mean? But so, I mean, how do you say no to that? That's not a fair trade. If I trade Kevin Durant for Kawhi Leonard and I'm out of the I'm out of the race. Now, I guess you could say in that one, right? Like Kevin Durant's a better keeper than Kawhi Leonard, but maybe I don't think so. And that's, I mean, if you really think Kawhi Leonard's going to be better than Kevin Durant next year, like I don't think you're clinically insane. I think you're wrong. Like I would much rather have Kevin Durant, but it's an opinion.
Yeah, I agree, but it's a bad opinion.
But here's the other thing too. Like, I don't think you should stop someone from being a bad manager.
No, I
Like,
think you should stop a bad manager from fundamentally ruining a league, but I
yeah.
don't think you should stop a bad manager from being a bad manager.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, right? Like, there are so many players every year that were like, if you would have told me this person is a top 50 player at the end of the season, before the season, I'd have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah, or top
Or like,
75 even. Like there's just so
right.
many random people who weren't even drafted who are super fantasy relevant.
Lou Williams is like a top 25 player this year. If you
I
told me that at the beginning of the season, I'd have been like, you've seen Lou Williams, right? Like, he's been what he is forever. It's like top 75 player, barely. Like, don't kid yourself, Mike. But here we sit.
That's true. Good for Lou Williams. Some other strategy I like to look into with roto leagues is the games played. So I do get a lot of questions about, oh, should I be under? Should I be over? Doesn't matter. And for the most part, I would say as long as you are only starting players who are having quality starts, that you're not just streaming your bench, because that's not how you play roto. It's not just about who played the most games, like head to head, which is really easy. Um, you if you have bench guys who are going off, get them in there. So if you're over, you're under, whatever. Maybe you saw some injuries, maybe you didn't. Uh, I like to try to stay around the kind of recommended amount of games played throughout the year. But if you're over a bit, if you're under a bit, whatever. Coming down to the stretch, though, like right after the trade deadline into March, I do prefer to be under on games. And this is for kind of the same reason, and maybe under by a bit too. And this is for the same reason we were talking about earlier, about looking at the categories, being able to assess them, and being able to figure out who or which categories will net you the most gain in your overall score. And this allows you to go out to the waiver wire and find guys who might be not standard league relevant on most teams, but would make a difference in your categories, and you can stream those guys over the next month. I like to be under by the at the beginning of March, but I like to be over and kind of well over by the end of March. Simply because the quality starts are starting to disappear. And also, like, if you're behind and well behind on starts right now in the season, it's going to be hard to make those games up. A lot of people make that mistake.
Well, yeah, and then a lot of people aren't doing exactly what you just advised there. So they're looking on the waiver wire. And then you're looking on the waiver wire for anything you can get because you're way behind in games.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's a race then every day to, like, who gets the first pickup. You know what I mean? And if you don't win that race, man, and you're the fourth or fifth person to pick someone up, or if you have fab, right? Like, you got to spend a bunch of fab to get the guy you want. And you probably don't have that much fab left. And then that gets crazy, right? And then now you're getting second and third and fourth priority pickups, and that's not helping you as much as it could. A lot of my roto leagues, I like to like chart the games a little bit. Like I look at, it depends on the depth of the league and all that, but I look at my like top 50 players. I'm going to try to start them every single game, no matter what, probably. Like if I own Kevin Durant roto league, he's in there every game.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Then with
all your best players.
That's what I mean, with my like, I don't know, 70 to 120, right? Like I'm kind of playing the matchups a little bit more. And obviously the little bit better players, I'm going to play them more frequently, and the worst players, I'm going to play them less frequently. But I also like to chart like, okay, Kevin Durant missed 3 games here, right? Like I'll put it in a spreadsheet. And then I know I have those 3 games to make up at some point. And I might do it in the middle of the season when not that many people are paying attention. Like if I see a good matchup of a guy on the waiver wire and I'm like, ooh, I can exploit this maybe, I'll pick him up.
Or, like a random night, like Mike Beasley is going to play 35 minutes, or you know Greg Monroe is going to play 35 minutes, or you know Joel Embiid is out, so you're like, Dario Saric looking pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that's how you play Roto, right? Is you just look to get as many quality games as you can because of those game limits. And I don't think that now is the best time to get those quality games because weird crap happens at this time of year too.
Very weird stuff. You might be, yeah, it's all about those quality starts, and all of a sudden, two of your players might just be out for the rest of the season. Oh, Steph Curry might not be back for the rest of the season.
Right.
Kyrie Irving might not be back for the rest of the season.
And that's the reason why
John Wall might not be back for the rest of the season.
Now I don't waste them. Like I won't say like I'm out of games by the end of March or the end of February. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to waste my games.
No.
But I'm never afraid to play a game when I feel I have a strong conviction that this is going to be a good game from a player. You know what I mean? Like if I feel good about it, I'm going to play that person.
Go for it.
Regardless of
sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're dead wrong. But
right.
that's them's the breaks.
Well, no one has 100% success percentage in almost anything in life. You know what I mean? But if it's in December and I'm seeing a matchup where I don't know.
Other than Michael Jordan in finals.
Yeah, you know.
Just throwing it out there.
But and so that's part of the strategy, right? Is like, and this is, you know, maybe something people can use for next year is if I see a game, you know, this player's out, this guy's going to get 30 minutes. I feel good about him scoring 15 points and get me 5 assists and 5 rebounds. In December, I'm going to play that player. I'm going to stream that player in there. And I'm not going to care about my games because
I often do not care about the games. If I'm over going into March, so be it. I must have had some pretty good bench players or it must have been, hopefully, you know, whatever games I'm over, at least, you know, 80% of them were quality starts.
Well, and here's the way I look at it too, right? Like I think a lot of times it works out because a lot of times when I'm over, then I get a couple injuries late in the season and I don't really have to make too many really tough decisions on, you know, am I going to sit Kevin Durant? I'm going to have to sit Kevin Durant in the last 3 games of the season because I wasted all my games. Well, no, like it usually works out that at some point the player gets injured, misses a few games, and it all works out in the end.
Yeah, and you're not like desperately doing the math, man. Oh, do I need to pick up Jaylen Brown and Spencer Dinwiddie to make my games so I actually play all my games? Like, do I need to like get these like just anyone? And like going for anyone usually means you're getting trash starts. And if you're trying to make up games, you have to play anyone no matter what. And I think a lot of people think they can make up games really, really, really quick because in the middle of the season, it is pretty easy in like a week or two to be pretty over on games. But down the stretch, weird things happen. Schedules are strange, and people sit out. And all it takes is if you're trying to make it to the day, all it takes is 1 or 2 of those guys to miss a game or to play 3 minutes and sit out, and you're like, oh, there's another missed start. Like you're not going to probably win a league trying to catch up on games over the last 2 weeks of the season. I think a lot of Roto leagues are made in the final months because people are correctly identifying their most impactful categories and then attacking those impactful categories.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, there's a lot of I'll say different skills, right, to be a Roto player, right? Like they're not strange and they're just different than head to head, right? Like it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, it's just there are more components, there's more strategy needed, there are more data points for you to figure out the best way to win. It's not I played the most games or I had 5 out of the 9 categories because I stacked my team with rebounders and block shot guys and good field goal guys and a couple high assist dudes. Like every single Roto league is very, very different, and it is very different throughout the entire season. So you really do have to pay attention the whole time.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And that's why, as always, I tell everybody, you play Roto. Just do it. Just do it. I don't know what you're waiting for. I think that is it. I could wax on about Roto all night, and we probably shouldn't. I think that is it for tonight.
Oh, we got one more guy to talk about, and I'm going to get this in slightly.
This better be good. This better be good, Tyler.
It won't take very long. Reggie Jackson's back.
All right, the show's over. Reggie Jackson.
He's up to 25 minutes. Okay, he actually played 28 tonight. Scored 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. This guy was actually out there in a decent number of leagues because he missed so much time. And I think you should probably pick him up and stream him. You know what I mean? Just play him, hold him, own him, love him. Yep. He's going to be good in assists, I think. He's going to get you a few rebounds. He's going to score. That's probably all he's going to do. But if you need those categories, he's probably your man.
It's a good guy to pick up down the stretch, especially in Roto leagues. I would say there are some categories he can move the needle in. And at this late in the game, that's always a really good thing. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people did forget about Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, right. And I mean, he is only owned in 34.3% of ESPN leagues.
Wow. He's not like, he's no John Wall. He's not going to blow the doors off or anything like that. But every little bit counts. But, man, there are a lot of really good guards in the league.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, like, point guard, right? We've always said, any starting point guard you should own. But it's like even more so now. I feel like every starting point guard I like with the Isaiah Thomas thing, I was looking at it the other day just thinking like, okay, where could Isaiah Thomas go and actually be a starter when he was doing his rant? And I'm like, dude, there's like no teams. Because there's teams like the Lakers and the Kings, right, that have a young point guard they're trying to develop. There's teams like Oklahoma City and Golden State who have like a top point guard. And then like every team is like
you kind of hit on it. The problem is the rebuilding teams don't want a 30-year-old point guard. There's no need for a 30-point team to even get us like a mid-aged superstar. But like the teams that are contending are all contending because they have some of the best point guards in not just the game, but maybe in the history of the game.
Well, and here's the thing too, like so then you jump at like the middle of the road teams, and it's like even them, like they have a point guard where you're like, I feel pretty good about that. Like the Grizzlies, Mike Conley. Feel pretty good about that, right? Yeah. Like there's so many.
What about the Bucks?
But don't they want Giannis and Chris Middleton and Malcolm Brogdon to be the ball handlers?
Like, and then they got Eric Bledsoe with their trade. So it's like, nope, not anymore.
That's what I mean. And like I struggled, and if you think you got the team, hit me up because I struggled to find any team where I thought like he's going to be more than a Lou Williams type. You know what I mean? Like I could see a few teams where he could be a Lou Williams, like a 6 man of the year type, but I couldn't find one where I was like, I'd make him the legitimate starting point guard on these guys.
That's fair. Good luck, Isaiah. Yeah, I'm with you. Reggie Jackson, I think he should be picked up in standard leagues across the board for the rest of the year. Why not? It makes a lot of sense. Also, if you got a pretty stacked team, stream them. You got to get all those games in if you're in your playoffs for all you head-to-head leagues that are still hanging around. So now, I think, unless Tyler has another guy up his sleeve, I think that might be it.
I think that's enough. That's enough for today. I just wanted to get that in there because I feel like he's kind of been written off a little bit, and he did have come back and play a couple games already, but like he was playing trash minutes, so maybe owners were still like, oh God, I don't want a guy playing 10 minutes, 12 minutes. But now I think that if he's up to 28 tonight, that's definitely worth it, right? Like he can be good in 28 minutes.
For sure. Go out there, pick him up. So yeah, this is pretty much we're very close to the end of the season. Tyler and I will be doing some end of the year shows. We'll probably be doing some retrospective on some of the players this year, kind of seeing where we went right, where we went wrong, and wrapping it up for the season. So we only have a few more shows left, but we want to thank all of our listeners for sticking with us. I hope.
And I'll throw one out there too. If there's a player you guys want to hear about, maybe what we think about him for next year, maybe possible anything. You know what I mean? Any player you want to hear about, hit us up. We'll talk about them. Talk about
Yeah,
what we think about anybody. You know what I mean? Like, and I know some of you guys right now in dynasty leagues are more focusing on next year. If you got a younger player you want to hear about, I'll talk about anybody.
definitely. If you're in a keeper league and you want to hear about keepers, send us your suggestions. Send us what you want to hear going down the stretch here. If it's about next year, if it's about this year, if it's about roto and playoffs and whatever, tweet at us. You can tweet at Tyler at Watsy4444 or me at Watch the Boxes. We respond. Like if you got questions about your team, content you want to hear, we are definitely open to providing, because like I said, we're doing this for you guys. We're doing this for all the listeners out there. We appreciate you guys sticking with us all season. It's been a really good season. You guys have been incredible. So, I mean, thanks for all your support. And you know what? If you want to support us a little more and you like daily fantasy basketball or daily fantasy anything, baseball, go out
Golf,
to
right? They're always trying to get me to play golf, and I'm like, I think you just want my money, guys, because I don't know
I'm
anything
not
about
doing it.
golf.
I'm not doing a draft.com, but if you're good at fantasy golf, I bet you clean up on draft.com, because there's a bunch of suckers like me and Tyler out there just throwing our money away on fantasy golf. Use that promo code boxes. That helps the podcast out. So does rating and reviewing the podcast. Anything you can do to kind of get the word out about the podcast. We will be in off-season mode very soon, but in the off-season, we will still be bringing you content. So if there is something you want to hear, let us know. And I think that's it. Tyler, you got anything else? Anything you want to plug?
No, man, that's about it. I'm gonna be doing a lot of draft centric content here in the next few weeks. So if you're into that, you can follow me on Twitter and find all that. I wrote about a favorite player of mine that's kind of unheard of, Elise Johnson, just the other day. So you can check that out.
Never heard of him.
He played for Missouri State.
I've never heard of Missouri State.
He is maybe one of the mid majors. He's kind of a 3-and-D wing with a Draymond Green body. He's an interesting cat. Play a little 3, play a little 4. I think he's going to be a second round pick, and I think he could kind of be a steal in the second round and be I won't say a starter, but a rotation player for a while. Just has the right body type, can shoot a little bit. Looks like a solid prospect.
Well, I would say the Bulls would probably sell him to the Warriors, but that would require the Bulls to have not traded away their next, 3 years of second round picks. So good job, Chicago. Appreciate it. Follow Tyler for all that draft content. He is going to be much more versed on the draft than I am, so I'm going to have to read those articles as well. And we will be seeing all of you next time. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.